Hello and welcome to a Wednesday edition of the Osceola Seminole Sidelines. My name is Pat Burnham, and I'm joined as always these days by Osceola recruiting writer and analyst Nick Carlisle. Nick, the beat goes on. The Seminoles continue to roll on the recruiting trail. Got another flip, well, two flips in the last, 36 hours, basically?
Something like that. I mean, I don't know if you would classify Jakobe Green as a flip, but I mean, that's what it was. You decommit and then commit to another program in a span of 24 hours. I think you could be comfortable in calling it a flip.
Yeah, so you've added Timmons, Green, Carter, and O'Neill all in the last 5 days, if memory serves. 4 or 5 days. I cannot remember exactly what it was, but so Florida State clearly on a roll, commitment-wise, based on some of the text messages or Twitter messages that some of the staff has put out. They are certainly expecting another commitment here in the near future. But yeah, listen, rolling right along with Jakobe Green, Lawrence Timmons, Devin Carter, Xavier Tiller, and all of those since the 20th, and O'Neill. So 5 since the 22nd. So 5 over 3 days. That's 5 over 2 days, really. 3 days, 22nd through 24th.
And also Luke Francis, so I think it's actually 6. I
think it's 6. Yeah, it is 6. Yeah. It's the 22nd. So Florida State has really benefited, closed out some of these official visits all the way up to number 10 in the rankings. And I believe we talked just about a week ago. They were number 25 or 26 in the nation. And of course, listen, this will all even itself out over the course of time as we get closer to December and the numbers for each recruiting class across the country become a little bit more similar. But listen, I can't take anything away from what Florida State has done. And let's talk a little bit about it. We can start with Jakobe Green. We'll start with him because he was the last commit to come on board. Had been committed to Florida State. Jakobe is a guy that we have said, Nick, for a long time. If Florida State ever said, hey, if you'll commit to us, we'll take the commitment, we thought this might be coming. I was not as sure as you were that it was going to come as quick as it was, simply because of when he was offered. I thought he might be further down the FSU's offensive line board, and there's some other names out there. But Jakobe, listen, this is where he wanted to be from that standpoint in a era of college football where it's turning more business than it was 20, 30 years ago. It's kind of a neat story for Jakobe because I remember talking to him when he was a sophomore. Clearly, Florida State was one of his favorite schools, if not his favorite school at the time. Waited, finally got that offer.
Yeah, incredibly happy for Jakobe on a personal level. I mean, you talk to him for the last couple of years and just see his eyes light up whenever he talked about Florida State. And that offer did take a while, but once he got it, I felt like it was pretty clear where he would end up if Florida State would ended up taking his commitment, and they did. I figured this was going to be the case, and I hinted at it earlier this week and on our boards still early this week. I just felt like this was coming in hearing that some of their other offensive line targets may be looking in another direction. And of course, losing Xavier Payne, having him leave the class. So I felt like this had a high probability of happening. It did end up happening. And I think this is a very, very good replacement for Xavier Payne's spot in this class as an interior offensive lineman. Certainly, I would even go as far to say an upgrade if you consider like how much he wants to play at Florida State and how much this means to him and how that would translate to the work ethic that he would have when he signs and gets on campus.
Yeah, listen, and I think both of those kids were developmental kids. I think maybe Payne was a little bit further along as far as learning how to move in a big body. But to your point, we hear it all the time on the message boards about, we want kids that want to be at Florida State, and Jakobe Green is certainly that. So it checks that box, not only for Florida State coaches, but for the fan base and for people that like the old school era of college football, which there was always money involved, but oftentimes than not, kids would go to the school where they wanted to go to school. And Jakobe Green, as we said, all our interactions with him have always led us to believe that Florida State was where he wanted to be, and he finally got the offer. And listen, I think he's I'm not going to sit here and say that he's going to be here a 3-year starter, all ACC. He is a mauler. He's a guard all the way. I think that we will see a different version of Jakobe Green in 2 or 3 years after he's had time to get in a weight room, kind of get a little bit stronger, redistribute some of his weight. But listen, I know you've mentioned it on the boards. I've mentioned it on the boards. When you watch the kid, he's got a nasty streak. He likes to finish blocks. He's sneakily athletic, particularly when you watch him get up on the second level. He's not as bendy as some of the other prospects you'll see. Like if you went back and compared him to Solomon Thomas last year, the best guard in the country last year, he doesn't bend quite as well as Solomon does, but he has that same physical demeanor where he's going to finish off blocks. Clearly advanced more in run blocking right now than pass blocking, but does have the feet to me to be a guy that can move laterally in pass protection. You just don't see a ton of it on his tape.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the kind of guy that you need in this class, somebody that can be a little bit mean, somebody who really enjoys pulling. And I think all guards enjoy pulling. And you were a guard, weren't you, Pat? Center, well, I don't know about, everybody likes pulling, but and you're probably going to be doing a lot of that in the offense that Gus is running. So it's great to have a kid that's got a mean streak, that loves finishing blocks, and has the possibility of really developing into a nice player once he figures out or kind of figures out how to play in his body and how that changes over time. Yeah. We talked about that a lot with offensive line prospects, but I really like this take. Maybe not the first guy you think of in terms of big name offensive lineman, but I think once more fans watch his tape and figure out what Jakobe is about, I think they'll come to like this take as well.
Yeah, and he'll be right down the road, transferred to Havana, was it South Gadsden County High School?
He was at Gadsden, then he went to Niceville, and now he's back at Gadsden.
Yeah. So transferred back to Gadsden for his senior year after spending 1 year over on the beach in the white sandy shores of the Fort Walton area, Niceville, all of that. But listen, happy for the kid. I mean, listen, we've been started covering his recruiting about the time that the Osceola partnered with Rivals, and just really nice. When I met him, he was a baby. He still is a baby, relatively speaking. But I don't think he'd shaved when first time I met Jakobe, and I remember talking to him after a camp, and you certainly he was an imposing guy as far as he was so big, so for such a young kid. But listen, he is definitely wants to be at Florida State, and when you got kids like that, you hope the best for him, because he was not playing games, and his recruitment was essentially down to Mississippi State and Florida State for the longest time. But he got that offer in late April, and he made the most of it. So good for Jakobe, good for Florida State, and he is a 3-star with a rating of 5.7. Maybe I should be embarrassed that I don't know what the 5.7 means, but that's what he is. In case of any of you guys that understand the rating system, I know what a 3-star is. Is that a high 3, Nick? I think that's a high 3.
Yeah, 5.7 is a high 3, and then 5.8 to 5.9 is a 4-star. I guess low to high, and then once you get to the 6s, I think even maybe 6, maybe 4-star, like high 4-star. 6 or 6.1. 6.1 is definitely 5. I can't remember if 6 is actually 5 or not. Yeah, I don't know. I don't pay as much as this is my job and our job. I actually don't pay attention to. I'm a stargazer. Not the actual number. Anyways, and we watch film. Trust your eyes in terms of what you see. So
yeah, yes, yeah. No, listen, so we'll see what happens with Jakobe once he gets here. But yeah, he is. And listen, there will be other rankings come out later in the year, particularly when rivals in on 3 complete their marriage. They will, I'm sure, have updated rankings between the 2 services. So we'll see what happens with Jakobe there. The one that I'm really fired up about, I had not watched a lot of film on him until I watched him today, and that is defensive back and cornerback prospect Lawrence Timmons. He goes by Jay, 5'11", 175 from Gibsonia, Pennsylvania. He's also a 3-star, had been committed to Indiana. He is, of course, the son of Lawrence Timmons Sr., Florida State linebacker, who obviously played for the Steelers for a while. This one seemed like a no-brainer once Florida State got involved. So I think it was only a matter of time, and I didn't know how to feel about it. And, when you hear legacy, that can be a good thing and a bad thing, right?
There's a mix of both, both on the roster and coming in. So, yeah.
So, but anyway, I turned on his film this morning, and what I did not realize is he's a 2-way player in high school. Lines up at running back, lines up at receiver, obviously lines up at cornerback. Listen, the thing that stuck out to me are his ball skills. He competes for the ball. I do think one of the things I like about him best as a DB is he's going to come in here as a former high school receiver, and I just think they have more natural instincts on how to play DB. They think the ball's there. They think the ball is theirs. You can see that on the defensive tape. He attacks the ball just like a receiver should, and that's the way you should play defensive back. Competes, high points the ball well, and probably the one thing I really like about him, and listen, everything's relative to who you're playing against, but on his tape, he looks extremely fast. I'd love to know what his 40 time is, but I will say this. You see one of the first plays on his video, he intercepts the ball on the far sideline, comes all the way across the field, returns it down the near sideline, and there are a ton of kids that have the angle on him, and you'll notice that a lot, whether he's returning interceptions or fumbles or catching passes. He has the speed, at least in high school, to run past, get past people who have the angle. He beats them to the angle, even though they should beat him there. He's just got that kind of explosive speed. I think he's probably going to be a boundary corner at Florida State. That would be my guess. But I really like this pickup.
I think he's got the versatility to play a bunch of different positions. Looks like a 10.9 in the 100-meter dash. I know that's not the 40, but that's as much information as I can see here. I got to be honest, this might be one of my favorite pickups in this entire class, Pat. Getting to see him in person at the elite camp, I mean, that speed that you saw on tape is 100% there. And he's not afraid of contact. He's a little bit of a smaller guy. I think he's only 5'11" or 6 foot, so not as rangy. But I think the first rep that I saw him at the elite camp, the receiver got by him on the outside. It was a post route. He came back, had great pursuit, was able to get back into play the ball as the receiver would, got a finger on it for an incompletion. Extremely impressive. And this is honestly one of my favorite pickups so far for this class. He's got great ball skills. He's got the tenacity to play through contact, through all the hand fighting, which is what you love to see with a defensive back. I think he could play nickel. I think he could play boundary corner. Maybe even, I don't know if I'd go as far to say like a box safety, but he definitely has the versatility to play all over the place. I really, really like this pickup.
You'll have to grow a little bit to be able to play safety in this defense. That's a lot of run support. Not saying that he can't do it, but he is 5'11", 175. But listen, we know this. They'll play him where they think they can use him, and we have seen them use nickels similar to him in size. So I think you're right. He could end up at any of the 3 quarterbacks.
Well, I'd say versatility, because I mean that's something that both Tony White and Evan Cooper look for in their defensive backs, and they moved a bunch of their defensive backs around in the spring practices as well, in terms of just kind of testing them, seeing where they fit, seeing how they can use them in different personnel packages. So I think there's a lot of possibilities with Jay. If you, I don't see why he wouldn't make it on campus, but assuming you sign him in December and get him on campus, I think there's a ton of possibility. There's a lot of potential there. He's incredibly quick. He plays the ball extremely well. I love this take.
Yeah, they got him, and it's ready to go. And of course, listen, I'd be surprised. Now we do know this. Florida State got in on him late, and a lot of other people are getting in on him late. So I think he'll end up here. But you're right. I mean, we get excited about all these commitments, and still got to get them to December 3rd or December 4th. Get them to the finish line, and so we'll see what happens. But yeah, like the take. So Florida State's had a really good 48, 72-hour run with 5 commitments. And really putting this class together, and we'll see what happens with some other guys. You know what? One guy they will not be getting, and we learned about this about 2:30 this afternoon, and not a surprise. We really thought Florida State was, I'm not sure, I'm not going to say on the outside looking in, because Jay Lamar has been to campus multiple times, and I think they were, of course, in it. I thought Georgia was the favorite all along, and Georgia does nail his commitment, but you don't ever know. All right, so Al, Woody, Trenton, who will be the better legacy, Timmons or Cromartie? I can tell you off tape, Timmons is a much better prospect coming out of high school. That's not even close to me. But anyway, so Jay Lamar will end up committing to Georgia this afternoon, so that's another running back. And then we've said all along, are you going to get 2 great backs in the same class? Maybe, but you've got Crowmaw on campus. You've got Cam Davis on campus. I think you've got Sam Singleton's got eligibility left after this year. I think the rest of the guys are gone. Keziah, Sawchuck will have another year left if he doesn't go pro. So, I think when you start looking at that board, where are you going to get another high-profile running back in this class? I think that was going to be hard. And plus, you got to allocate your NIL, right? So how much money are you going to put in running backs compared to another room? But listen, we'll see. Crowmaw was committed to Georgia at this time last year, or thought to be going to Georgia, and we wake up on the morning of National Signing Day, and sure enough, he has changed his mind and ended up at Florida State. So we'll see what happens there. And listen, there's a lot of noise around Derek Cooper going to Miami now. So those same dominoes that took effect earlier in the week last week with the quarterbacks are now starting to trickle down to other positions, and looks like running back is the position of the week right now, because it does look like now that Derek Cooper is going to have to decide between Ohio State, Miami, and Florida State, because it looks like Georgia's would be off the board now that Jay Lamar's there. Any thoughts on Lamar?
Not surprised to see him go to Georgia. I think FSU was probably running third in this race behind Miami and Georgia. It's interesting to see what Florida State's going to do now, because I do still believe they intend to take a second running back, but the guys that they're swinging for, the big fish that they're swinging for, are coming off the board to go to other schools. And obviously there's been a little bit of rumblings about Amari Thomas and the strength of his commitment. I'm not overly worried about that, but South Carolina is making some noise there. It'll be interesting to see where they go. They do have a couple of other options. Amari Latimer, who is a guy that has expressed interest in Florida State. He's the cousin or the nephew or something along the lines of Erman Lane. And then Darius Pryor is a 3-star that they brought in a couple of times. He's lower down the board. So they do have options in terms of adding a second running back to the class. I know Carson is committed to Florida, but honestly, I would not be surprised if Florida State has a good season on the football field, that maybe you might be able to get a chance to flip Carson way down the line. But that's all speculation. It's interesting to see what they're going to do from here at the running back position, because I do think that, we talked about this early in the spring when they added Sawchuck, is what's this going to look like? And to your point, how are they going to allocate these NIL funds? Because Oos is got a pretty penny attached to his name. So it's and it's not just Oos, but that's who directly I guess is your most recent addition to the room out of high school. So I it'll be curious to see what they do. Maybe because I do not expect Derek Cooper to be committing to Florida State. I think he's going to go to Miami. So all the big fish that you were swinging for are now off the board, unless I'm forgetting somebody that they brought in that I can't quite remember. I think that's all of them. So yeah, I guess. I mean, this class is really healthy. It'll be interesting to see where they allocate heading into or what they choose to do to shore things up heading into the fall after the dead period's over.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing who the next 2 high school offensive line commitments are going to be. That's going to be it, because I think they're going to have to. I think they're going to take tackles. Who would those guys be? Is it a guy we know about like Aaron Thomas or Ben Mabinga, or is it going to be someone that develops late? Maybe we get another Lucas situation where they find somebody late at tackle. But anyway, that's the one thing I want to see. And listen, and maybe they plan to play Ionata at tackle. I know there's a lot of people that think he's going to end up inside at guard, but maybe he is a tackle. But yeah, I can't wait to see who's next on the offense. Mabinga, he just looks the part to me.
Yeah,
it'd be fun to see what he could do. Some other updates. Now this came out about 36 hours ago, but we were done with our show when it came out on Monday. But Samari Smoke Matthews has actually moved his commitment date up to July 11th. Now, I don't know what his original date was, but he has moved his commitment date up to July 11th. So we will find out sooner rather than later whether he will pick Florida State, Texas, Miami, and I cannot remember who the other school, South Carolina. And that's, for a long time, it looks like South Carolina has led slightly over everyone else. And I saw earlier or late last night that somebody has put in a future cast for Samari to go to Texas. So who knows what's going to happen, but he is going to announce on July 11th between those 4 schools. And of course, Samari is a guy that we've gotten to know a little bit just because we've had him on Seminole Sidelines before. We would like to break our streak of people coming on.
I don't think he's going to be the one, Pat. I got to be honest with you.
I mean, we do get an asterisk with Jarvis Boatwright, because we did have him on before he signed at USC, but he is now at Florida State. So technically the curse is over, but Samari could really help us out by committing to Florida State and signing with Florida State and get the reeling them in curse off the Osceolas back here in late June, or early July. So anyway, I wish I could get Samari. He seems like such a good kid. We really had a good conversation, and we talked with him on Seminole Sidelines. It's been about 4 months ago now. It was after I believe one of his spring visits, if I'm not mistaken. No, it probably might have been right at the beginning of the year. So it's probably been more like 6 months ago. I know that we both have future cast in for Forkpaw to Florida State. He did show up in Indianapolis for the Rivals 5-star camp with a Florida State jacket on, so that's a good sign. What's not a great sign for Florida State is that he has now pushed he was going to choose between a list of schools, and you got Michigan involved, Miami involved, Florida involved, Florida State involved. So all those schools are involved with Forkpaw. He came out of his official visit famously 2 weeks ago and says, I'm ready to be a Knoll. Then obviously goes to Michigan and things kind of quiet down a little bit. So he was going to commit in June initially to somebody out of that group of schools. Has now said, I'm going to push that back either into July, and even mentioned to John Garcia or Sam Spiegelman. I cannot remember which of those 2 dudes he was talking to, but said that this could go into the season now. So how do you read where Forkpaw is now? And do you still like Florida State's? You still think Florida State leads? We clearly like their chances with them, but do you think Florida State still leads in this?
Yeah, I think they do, but I don't think it's. I don't think it's as wide open as it was. I think, probably his family encouraged him, and I don't know that for sure, but I imagine that there was some encouragement to continue to take your visits and see what happens. To me, I see this as a reset, because, Forkpaw's original plan was to decide in season and kind of just evaluate how things were going. He told me in Atlanta that was his plan. He was going to evaluate his finalists, throughout the season to make sure that they weren't just selling him a lie and they weren't just telling him things. He needed to see the things that he was being pitched on the football field in season. So him now reverting back to an in-season commitment, or at least pushing it back towards close to the season, it's not. I think I choose to see it as a reset other than anything else. I do think it's noteworthy that it was Florida State and that visit that did kind of nudge him initially, saying, well, maybe I need to make a commitment now. Maybe I'm ready to make a commitment now. You go on some other visits, you have some other things to think about, and maybe cooler heads prevail. And now you're evaluating your finalists through the next couple months to see where things land. So I still do like where Florida State sits. Obviously, I put that future cast in a couple of weeks ago before you put yours in this morning. So mine's a little bit more of the moment when he came out and told me personally, I'm thinking I'm ready to be a Seminole. But, obviously words are words and actions are what matter. And here we are a couple of weeks later, and there's a change in plans for him. So to answer your question, yes, I still think Florida State is a leader. By how much, I'm not sure, but I wouldn't read anything too into him now deciding to commit in season, because that was the plan initially. It just so happened that his Florida State visit was good enough for him to briefly consider an early commitment.
Yep. Well, another kid that Florida State is not going to be in on is going to be Trenton Henderson. He announced today he's down to 3 schools. I think Florida State was always on the outside looking in because they're the only school that he planned to visit in season. That visit has now been canceled. I think he's down to Florida, LSU, and Texas, if I'm not mistaken. But his official visit to Florida State, which was scheduled for the Alabama weekend, has been canceled. Preston Ashley, who was also scheduled for that weekend, has committed to Colorado. I know less about whether he'll actually still plan to take his official visit to Florida State. And then Ashari Charles, who was also scheduled to be in for the Alabama weekend and still may be, committed to Miami. So everyone that was supposed to be in on the 30th it doesn't look like they're going to get to August 30th and an official visit. And listen, I don't think we thought they were in the lead on any of those 3 kids, although we had seen we'd heard more. There were times when it seemed like they were trending in the right direction with Ashley, not so much Charles and Henderson.
Yeah, I kind of got the sense that as much as Ashley liked Florida State, I felt like after Auburn fell out of the picture for Ashley, that he was going to end up at Colorado, and that was a couple of weeks before he took his official visit there. So I'm not terribly surprised to see him go to Colorado. I feel if Florida State was truly serious about him, we would have seen him coming in the summer. It wasn't like there was a shortage of official visits to dole out or come around, and it's not like he had a packed schedule either. I mean, he only took 2 official visits, or I can't remember if he made his Auburn official visit or not, but I feel like if Florida State was serious about him, we would have seen him this summer. Doesn't mean that they aren't, maybe they circle back around on him later in the summer. And of course or later in the fall. And, we saw last year that a bunch of prospects that pushed their official visits into the season initially canceled those visits and then came in, changed things around and came on a visit anyway. One of those being like a Mario Nash Jr. who committed to Mississippi State in the summer. Florida State came back on him. The visit that he had previously canceled was back on, and then he joined the class. And obviously, you got to take it by situation basis. Not every recruitment is the same. But I think with these 3 specific guys, I think Ashari Charles was a guy that they were trying to get back in on, and it just there was never really any momentum there. That's one of those confusing recruitments for me that Charles really liked Florida State early on, and they really liked him, and that relationship, that communication just never really developed through last season. And then who was the other kid? That was Henderson. Florida State was out. There's no other real way to say it other than Florida State had been out for a while, and I felt like that August visit was a courtesy visit, if anything. But they have not been a factor in his recruitment for a while, at least the last couple of months. So.
Yeah. Keon, we got a question on Keon Chapman. Keon Chapman from, I think he's from the same school that Jackson, Alabama. Isn't that where the quarterback is Duckworth is from?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So, you know what? I'll have to defer to Nick on this one. I know that he was supposed to be on campus June 6th for an official visit. I'm not sure whether that took place or not. I can't remember back that far. He only by what I can tell, he only took 2 official visits, Florida State and North Carolina. He got offered by Colorado as recently as this week. I have not heard much rumors or rumblings about him. I think it's probably so. I'm gonna call it wait and see on both sides right now. It seems like he is still exploring the recruiting process, and then Chapman. I've just not heard any rumblings about him being close to committing to Florida State or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't really know how to read this one either, especially now that Devin Carter flipped to go in class or to get back in the class. So they have got 3 technically wide receivers if you consider Ephraim White a wide receiver, which I do. I know there's a lot of debate on what side of the ball he's going to play. So I'm going to say Florida State has 3 wide receivers, but there is no wide receiver in the class that has the skill set that Keon Chapman has. I mean, he's the one big bodied receiver that Florida State genuinely has a shot at landing. It is a 2-team race between North Carolina and Florida State. He did take his official visit on June 6th, and then he came back with his high school for a 7-on-7 tournament a week later. So he's been on campus recently. I just don't have a great sense or feel for how this one's going to play out. If Florida State wants the kid, I imagine that there's a good chance that Florida State will take him, but I believe he commits tomorrow. I would also not be surprised to see him go to North Carolina or commit to North Carolina. It's really a matter of, I think it's a numbers game in terms of how many wide receivers Florida State still wants to take in their class. They're at 3 right now. I imagine they want to end up 3 to 4. But truly, I mean, he's the one big body receiver that Florida State is in on right now that I think they have a good chance of getting. I don't think Calvin Russell's in play whatsoever. So I mean, we'll find out tomorrow. But quite frankly, I don't get a good read on where this one's headed. Other than that, I know that he came on his official visit, and the staff was evaluating him really, really closely when he came back a week or so later with his high school for 7-on-7. So,
and listen, he is clearly playing his. He's been a kid that's been fairly quiet in his recruiting process, whether that was planned or unplanned. But two of the 3 recruiting services have no prediction on where he's going to be, and for a 4-star prospect this late in the process, that's kind of, I think that tells you a little bit of the story, unless both recruiting services were just kind of lackadaisical about updating his records. But yeah, so
well, here we're sitting here and no, the Valley doesn't have a ranking either, and I don't know how that has.
I'm talking about predictions for him. Now,
I know. Oh, well, I'm talking about letting some kids like fall under the radar, and I guess predictions, rankings, whatever have you. Some kids get left behind for whatever reason. Remember when what's that kid's name? Jackson last year out of Seminole Ridge was a really, really good prospect, and I don't think we didn't have him ranked, or Rivals didn't have him ranked until like October or something like that. It was crazy.
Well, when I left the University of South Florida and went to work for Fox and Scout.com, I fought the rankings battle one time, and I swore I'd never let it bother me again. There was a offensive tackle at Bartram Trail High School that was a 3-star. There was an offensive tackle at Providence High School in Jacksonville that was a 4-star. And they both had a ton of Division I offers. One of them at Florida, one of them at Stanford. Florida State went late on the kid at Bartram Trail, and I think they would have gotten him if he wasn't so. If he had been more into football, he ended up at Stanford for his major, whatever. They did not have whatever he wanted to specialize in at Florida State. That's ultimately why he chose Stanford. It was a 3-year starter. Long story short, I remember picking up the phone and calling someone from Scout, and I was like, how do you guys determine, how do I get a guy changed to a 4-star? Was basically my question. And they said, well, we do this thing every so often, yada, yada, yada. I was like, well, I think I've covered the 2 best tackles in the Northeast Florida over the last 6 months. These are the 2 best offensive linemen in the Jacksonville area. They both hold the same potential as far as what they're going to be able to do in college. And they said, well, we'll make note of it. But we're only allowed to have so many 5 stars, so many 4 stars, so many 3 stars. So that's when I got over the recruiting rankings, because the 4 stars if there are 1,000 4 stars, there are 1,000 4 stars. If there's 333 4 stars, there's 333 4 stars. So anyway, I quit fighting the battle on stars a long time ago, and let the people that want to make the decisions on that make them. And it is what it is. Now, all right. So is FSU in contact the recruit from Tallahassee that committed to Cal? I'm assuming.
I wonder who that could be.
I think you're talking about Thomasville, and I think you're talking about Cam Brooks. Listen, I would be unless Florida State made the decision that they wanted other guys in front of him, I am sure they're still in contact with him. Unless he is so far down their board, and I don't know exactly where he is on their board. We talked about this early. When a new staff comes in, they reevaluate those recruiting boards and kind of put their own together. I think they're in contact with him. Yes, I would think even if he was a back burner guy for them, they want to take 4 defensive ends and he was number 6 on their board. Yes, I think they're still in contact with him, or trying to be in contact with him. And I don't think that one's over yet. I've said it all along.
I disagree. I disagree. I think that recruitment is done. I think it's been mutually ended, and I would be surprised if I don't think they're in contact right now, and I don't imagine they will be. I think both sides have mutually parted there.
Yeah, I don't. It's recruiting. That's the way that stuff works. I don't think that they've killed it totally. That's not been my experience in the 10 years I spent in football. I mean, these things happen. You overcome these things. It's part of the recruiting process. But how much they're contacting him, I don't know. But I think it depends on a variety of things. But I don't think it's been shoved under the mat. He's right down the road. I think they'll keep an eye on him. His mother still wanted him to visit. Well, if that's true, there's, like I said, you may see him on campus before the end of the year. Recruiting is fluid, and when you got a kid right down the road, I don't think you say. I don't think. As one head coach I worked for told me, you can always shut the front door, but you always leave the back door cracked for things like this. And I guarantee you that is Florida State's philosophy. And if that kid and his high school coaches are smart, they would have the same philosophy. The front door may be shut, but the back door is cracked. So we'll see what happens. But yes, I think for right now, that one is not a high priority. I do agree with Nick on that. I don't think it's a high priority for Florida State. I think they've got other things going on, and they've got Cottrell Webb and several other kids that are been on campus, and there's only going to be so many seats at the table. So when the music stops, if he doesn't have a chair, he's out. And listen, I don't know. I keep on saying this. I don't know that he was as high a priority for Florida State as Cam wanted to be, and I think that might be part of what's going on here. But it is recruiting. I've seen stranger things happen. That is for sure. You got any thoughts on Addison, Chris Addison, Nick?
Yeah, I think there's a good possibility that he joins the class. I think in terms of some of the programs that he's visited, I think FSU's in a good place if they want him. I don't know if they prefer him. I know there are some outlets that have a crystal ball in for him. I haven't gone that far yet to put a FutureCast in for him on our system, but I think Florida State's in a good spot for him right now. So it's dependent on I think whether or not. Right now, my thinking is either Addison or Cottrell Webb, and I think you have a FutureCast in for Webb. It could go either way in terms of which one they take. It's an either or thing for me. So I think they're in similar spots for both prospects. I can see both joining the class. But it's a matter of who goes first.
Really, your most gettable edges right now are Addison, Eliezer, Webb. They're all uncommitted.
Yeah,
they've all been on.
And campus. I don't get a great feeling for Eliezer either. I don't get the warm fuzzies that he's going to choose Florida State. I could be wrong. But Florida State has been looking for a Jack prospect this entire time, and it seems like they're out right now on Cam Wilson. Jarius Rogers, they haven't circled back on. I don't think they view him really as high on their board at all. Webb and Addison are.
I watched the film on him. I was not.
I was not. Yeah. So I think they wanted to see more from him and for him to build his body a little bit more, and it just never happened. So, in terms of guys that they consider to be, I guess, Jack guys, I think you're looking at Webb and I think you're looking at Addison as those guys, and I think Florida State's in a good spot for both of them. It's just a matter of, I guess, who pulls the trigger first. Not to say that they can't land both of them, but I think it's an either or situation right now.
Yeah, linebackers. Listen, they've got Lavale right now committed. They've got Maycock committed. I would think that they might want one more from the high school ranks. I do think they'll go back into the portal for a linebacker after this season, at least one. Yeah, listen, I think Maycock is 50-50 right now at best that he sticks. A lot of smoke about Alabama. So then you've got Lavale. It looks like, Griffin, I wish they could get him. He'd be an outside linebacker in this defense. I think they've got him listed as an edge. I'm not sure that's I think he's more of
I think he's actually linebacker.
Yeah, I think he's more of an outside linebacker than he is an edge myself. I don't think he's 6'4" like the Rivals has him listed. I don't think he's 6'4", but I think he's more linebacker size. So I'd like to think that they could get him. But the only reason I think they've got a chance is because 6 weeks ago it was Texas. This week last week it was Alabama. So we'll see. He does like Mike, and really, you got Forkpaw. I mean, Forkpaw's in there still. We'll see what happens there.
You've got Rodney Colton. You got TJ White as well.
TJ's. I think I put in a future cast today for him to Tennessee. I think he's out of the picture.
Okay. Well, he decides July 1st. I think
that's correct.
Something like that. So and then with Colton, I've reading his comments from multiple other official visits. I have a feeling that's a highest bidder situation. I don't want to necessarily put it that way, but I kind of get the vibe that it's a NIL thing. Though that said, if it's not an NIL thing and I'm just talking out of my behind, he does have connections with Florida State. Like, he is good friends with Elijah Herring on the team. They grew up in the same area together. So that's something to pay attention to.
Now, I don't know if this is old news or not, but I am looking at his profile right now, and Colton's got an official visit set up for Ole Miss late December.
Yeah.
I wish I knew when that was scheduled. That would give me a lot better. If this was scheduled late November. I'm sorry, late November. Looks like he's going for the Egg Bowl based on the date, 11/27, 2025. Yeah. So it looks like he's going for the Ole Miss Mississippi State game. See if I can pull up his unofficial visit record. I don't think he's taking.
Yeah, but I mean, because Florida State jumped in during the summer and pushed Mizzou out of it, and then Ole Miss got back in it as well. I just get the sense, and I don't know if any other outlet or any other person feels the same way. I just get the sense that with where he's going and how wide open and varied his recruitment is in terms of where he's going and who he's visiting, that this is kind of just an open recruitment. And
so this is going to come down to just National Signing Day, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it might be one of those deals.
Well, listen, if he's going to take that Ole Miss visit, that's legit. And obviously, it was legit when it was put in the system.
I can't remember if I put that in the system or not. But
if that is still all right, because there's another service that has his official visit to Ole Miss happening in June, so that needs we got to figure that out. That would help.
Yeah, it's been all over the place. I guess with it really is out of all of the linebacker commitments, recruits that are still available. I think they have the best shot with Forkpa. There are some other guys that canceled their official visits that they may work back on. and try to get back in the fall. Like maybe like an Antoine Sharp who's committed to is he still at UCF or did he go to West Virginia?
West Virginia, I believe.
West Virginia. He was originally committed to UCF. Yeah. There are some guys.
Colton's announcing July 12th if you're keeping track at home.
I am not keeping track at home. It's impossible it's not impossible. It's a little hard to keep track at home. Yeah. So with the linebackers, they're in a good spot. They really like Valley. Obviously, they want to hold on to Maycock. And I think they have to feel good about some of the guys that they're still in on.
Oh yeah, if they were to get Colton and Fort Pa, I think they'd be happy as hell.
Yeah.
And hold on to Mayock and Lavalle, and then go get you one or two that can come in and play right away next year, unless you feel good about what you got coming back. And most of those guys need to show that they can take, Nicholson and who's my man, Cryer. If they show that they're ready to take over full-blown roles and be difference makers going into 2026, maybe you don't have to dip into the portal as hard. But, yeah, so I think it's going to be fun to see what happens at linebacker the rest of the way. I really do like Maycock. It would be great if they could keep that commitment. But
Xavier Griffin, that's the last. I was like thinking, who's the last one? I don't consider him as going to Florida State in my mind whatsoever, so I kind of just like compartmentalized and pushed that thought
He's
out.
Not there anymore.
No, he's not there anymore. I would be utterly shocked. I would be shocked.
Yeah, and I think he's announcing on June 29th, by the way.
It's very soon.
Yeah.
It's very soon.
So we'll know. Actually, I may be I am going to be in Gainesville, Georgia. So if we get word that it is going to be Florida State, I might drive over to the high school.
I was going to say, don't do that to yourself. Don't give yourself hope just to get it taken away like that.
Well, I'm sure my niece, who is their director of football operations, is probably going to want me to go over there with her that day anyway. So because we'll be at the lake. But hey, so we may have live coverage of Xavier Griffin
choosing another school,
committing to somebody else.
Committing to somebody else.
You don't know. I mean, hey, I know that. I don't know. I think I've said this before recently on the show. I do know that right during the spring visit window. Oh, great. My windows are down, and it's fixing to be a frog strangler out here in Killearn. I don't know if you are getting
it's cloudy outside. A frog strangler?
A frog strangler. That's what you call it when it's going to rain really hard, really fast. A frog strangler.
And you were making fun of me for something that I said the other day that sounded Canadian. I have never heard that phrase. I have never heard that phrase in my life.
You do say some words that have a Canadian influence. And I can't tell you what that's like. I want to say it's tournament. Say tournament, Nick.
Tournament.
No, it's not tournament.
Frog strangler.
Frog strangler. That means it's going to rain so hard, so fast, and it would strangle a frog, and that's hard to do. So it just the adding some alliteration.
This is the content that I feel like Florida State haters, like who just view like Florida State of like hicks and hillbillies. This is probably what they imagine we talk about, and here we are talking about it. Like what if you're like a I don't know, like an Ole Miss fan, you think, what's a Florida State podcast sound like? They're talking about raining super hard and frog strangling and
we can dive deep and make ourselves sound intellectual. I mean,
we could. We
could say have poetry hour. I mean, I've got a poem.
I don't want to hear any poetry that you have written down. I don't want to hear it.
I'm just saying. I mean, we can get intellectual and broad based, and we can be very sophisticated if you want, Nick. We can do that. We can come on and talk The Great Gatsby on the next show.
Educated, get real educated.
We can talk about the Vietnam War and all that went wrong with that. I mean, what do you want to talk about? We're talking about football.
Maybe not something that happened 50 years ago. Historical stuff.
All right, so what sports wise you want to talk about, Nick? And I'll try to sound smarter about.
I don't know.
Hey, by the way, your Castellanos just getting roasted about his comments. Cannell's gotten after his butt. Yeah, so that's been fun.
As I think, I mean, he couldn't have said those comments without expecting some kind of backlash.
Well, hey, I will say
at least I hope so.
I will say this. Like I said on Monday's show, it is what it is, right? It's preseason. It's William FSU is 10th in the rivals rankings for 2026.
Could go higher.
Listen, I will say this. If it was not for him saying that, no one would be talking about Florida State. So at least people are talking about Florida State. I don't know if it's for the right reason or not. But yeah, so the more the notes come out from that interview, the more I wish he'd said less. But listen, it is what it is. And listen, these guys are in the business of selling their brand. That's part of this. But yeah, so I did not think I did not realize as many, but I've heard Josh Pate say something, Danny Cannell. I mean, it caught everybody's attention. So we'll see what happens. And did you see what the great Stephen Orr Spurrier said about Arch Manning?
I did.
I
honestly don't know how I feel about that, because I think there's a degree of truth in there, but also it's like sometimes you just need to let quarterbacks develop, Sometimes they need to sit and learn.
Well, Steve is a beloved character of college football, and
that's one way to put it.
He does have a forked tongue at times. He has this innate ability to give someone a compliment while at the same time belittling somebody else, or giving someone a compliment and at the same time belittling that same person. But he certainly has a way with words. But I did not think I would see that from him. But does not surprise me. His tongue is forked at times. Oh, we got an early preseason Alabama FSU prediction from William McMillan. Williams got FSU 28, Alabama 25. Nick, you ready to put down a prediction yet?
I could come up with something. I could. Alabama 31, Florida State 21.
You got what now?
Alabama 31, Florida State 21.
All right. So Nick's got the Crimson Tide. All right.
That's probably pretty fair.
Will Myrie and Kent be accepted given FSU 3 tight end commitments? I think that's what he's asking us. Listen, I think they'll take Kent at the drop of a hat. I think it's a little – I would take Myrie too, because I think Kent's going to end up seeing the light at some point by the time he's a redshirt sophomore, maybe even sooner than that, redshirt freshman, knowing that he's going to make his money if he wants to play in the NFL as a tackle. So, yes, I would take Myrie and Kent if they were willing to commit. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I would too. I think that room is so bare bones right now in terms of the young talent that they have that they'd be willing to take all three. And the third being Tiller, who they just got. I think that I think that I don't know if I'd say that there's a good chance that they would get all three, but I definitely think that if there is the possibility to take all three, they do take all three. I don't think this is a situation where somebody is taking somebody else's spot. Let's put it that way. If one of them were to commit before the other.
Yeah, no, I don't think this is an either or thing, right?
No. It's, my understanding of the situation, what I've been told, is that they are perfectly happy and willing to take both. So it's not a situation in terms of like if Myrie were to commit later today, that Kent would then turn his nose to FSU. So I still feel good about that one.
Yeah, and not to change subjects, but I'm sitting here thinking as you're talking, and what about Cal Raleigh? I'm talking about baseball now.
Oh yeah,
I mean he is going insane. I mean I don't watch a whole lot of West Coast Major League Baseball. Watch more of Braves, and I like to watch Skeens. I watch certain pitchers throw the ball. Like I like to watch Verlander pitch, and I like to watch the guys that throw the heat. I like to watch them pitch, but it's what, 32 home runs? Is that where we're at right now with Cal Raleigh?
A lot
On
of
pace?
dingers. I don't know the exact number. A lot of dingers.
Has a catcher ever hit 60? Do you know?
No, I don't. My baseball history is sorely lacking. Not as good as my football. Not as good as my football for sure.
I bet you Kurt knows.
I bet you Kurt does know.
I bet Kurt knows that.
No, sure. So wait, what says I agree with your 31-21 score if Jalen Milroe are playing. I'm not sure what we're gonna get out of Ty Simpson. But I think that there are more weapons on offense to be able to carry bad quarterback play with Alabama than there are Florida State. So I wish that, and who knows, maybe we'll get our beloved Access back in the spring, in the fall, to where we can get a better idea of what Florida State is looking like personnel wise. But I think that even with a young quarterback, I think there's such a tremendous amount of talent on that Alabama team that, especially at wide receiver, with what is going to be at certain positions a younger secondary. I don't know. I feel right now that Alabama's probably winning that one regardless of the quarterback, but we'll see. We'll see.
That's why they play the games.
That is why they play the game. Would you be okay? So just thinking about this, like what is acceptable? Obviously, if we're presenting our biases in full, well, obviously we'd want a Florida State victory. Just as the fans deep inside us, like the publication, the non-bias or whatever, who cares who wins? But what is an acceptable outcome? Like if Florida State were to lose that game, are you of the same mind that it has to be close? Or are you saying, well, they can lose by 2 touchdowns and everything will still be okay? Like what is the realm of acceptability there?
Well, I think competitive loss would be great given coming off last year, particularly knowing that you should rattle off 2 wins right after that. You should be no worse. Really, you should beat Virginia. I know it's Friday night at Charlottesville, yada, yada, yada. But in the NIL area, you should, our portal era, you should be able to out-portal Virginia and prove your roster better than they did. That guy's under the hot seat. I think he's in year 4 there. He has not won much. So I think, listen, a loss is still a loss, and sometimes a close loss is more heartbreaking than getting your ass beat because you think you had a chance, and there's more ripple effects off that than just a good ass kicking. And sometimes a good ass kicking can serve as motivation. Listen, it's the first game of this. Like, to me, with where this game falls on the schedule, to me, I wouldn't want to play them week 6, right? To me, I think you're getting Alabama with a new quarterback. If there's a time for Florida State to pull an upset over an Alabama team that's based off recruiting rankings and everything that everybody likes to think matters, Alabama's a superior team coming into this game. If you look at average rating, and then obviously they've got some really they got one of the best wide receivers in the nation. Florida State's got potential to have 2 really good receivers. I like that this is an opening game. I think Florida State can surprise them a little bit with a new offensive play caller, new defensive play caller, a little bit more what I think will be a little bit more aggressive defense, particularly trying to reestablish the line of scrimmage and not do so much two-gapping and heavy on the tackles. So I do think that they're catching Alabama at the right time. So new quarterback for both teams. Florida State's quarterback's got the most experience out of those 2 quarterbacks. Now, Florida State's offensive line has experience, but not at Florida State. Alabama does return a good bit of its offensive line. So, yeah, I kind of agree with Woody. Less than 10 points would be a respectable loss. I do think where it falls on the schedule, stranger things have happened in week 1. And this is a bad analysis, but it's our comparison because it's the only one that's coming to my mind at this second. But I remember, and I'm not saying that App State and Florida State are the same programs, but there was 15, 20 years ago, App State went to Michigan in week 1 and walked off the field with a win that they probably would not won if they played that game 99 more times. They wouldn't have won 99, one of those 99. So I do like where it falls for Florida State on the schedule. I think it's an advantage that way. I don't think you want to be playing an Alabama team that whose new quarterback has found himself and found their offense within him. So yeah, I'll go with Woody. Less than 10 points.
Now, is that before or after Thomas Castellanos made comments to Hunter?
No, I'm not sure.
No, okay, we don't need to react, but
I mean, Tommy may not see the end of that ball game, but
yeah. Oh God.
That's why
man.
It was one of the reasons I put on the board. No, I'm kidding. I did put on the board on Jalen King. Bob wrote an article on Jalen King because all the newcomers, if you don't know, if you have not been to the Osceola.com today, all the newcomers are meeting with the media. And so Jalen King, Bob wrote an article on him. And who's the starting running back, Daryl? I think it's Sawchuk all the way. I think that's the reason they brought him in. I think it will be him. And Williams will get the first bite at the apple, and then I think it'll be up to Cam Davis and Usman Cromah to push those guys for playing time. But I'm going Sawchuk right now. I mean, you brought him in. There's a reason you brought him in. He's an accomplished back, and I think that's the guy. Nick, what about you?
Yeah, I'd say Roydell, Sawchuk 1-2, and then 3-4 is Us and Davis. I think Sam Singleton's going to be a really nice special teams contributor. It maybe has the opportunity to take some reps as like a third or fourth running back there, but I think it's probably Sawchuk, Roydell. They really like Roydell. I've been told multiple times over the course of the spring that for whatever reason, Florida State really, really likes what they have in Roydell Williams. And then I think Sawchuk just has the potential to have a bounce back year and surprise people a lot. So, man, you and I have both gotten darker as the frogs are getting choked outside by this storm. I just see both of our lights just continue to dim as it starts to storm.
The clouds are moving in over here in Kallar. There's no doubt about that. Hey, by the way, speaking, you were talking about Mike or access to practice. I do hope that he does give the beat writers access to practice again. I don't think he'll give it to everybody during the season. I think there'll be some camp. I would hope that he realizes that was a little bit of an overreaction to shut it down all spring except for one time. Listen, there's no one that is that understand. I guess maybe he's worried about injuries in the background, somebody saying something like that. As much as everyone thinks that they know the intricacies and nuances of their offensive and defensive systems, no one's getting on the phone and calling their beat writer at Auburn or Alabama and saying, hey, this is what they're doing on their defensive end and against a pistol offense, pistol formation. And they're not doing that. No one knows enough about that to create a competitive disadvantage for Florida State. And I think that it would be nice if people got to be inside what is supposed to be a comeback season for Florida State and be able to tell the story effectively. But I do not think he will allow access once the season starts. So my hope is that he will allow access once for camp and then maybe cut it out after that. All right. So who's an underrated freshman? Both sides might surprisingly show up. On both sides that might surprisingly show up for FSU.
So underrated freshman that might get early PT on offense and defense.
Good question.
I have, and I don't think he's underrated, but I think out of all of their defensive additions that they got last year, I think Shamar Arnaud has the best chance to see the field early. I've heard that he's really, really good, and he's been doing well so far. God, I'm trying to think about who they signed. Oh, that's how fast it moves.
I tend to agree with you on Shamar.
I have to go back and look who they signed because I'm just in 2026 mode. Tylon Lee. That might be a good shout too. I mean, from where that kid was when we saw him in the spring of last year to where he was at the end of the year, in terms of how much weight he put on and how much weight he continues to put on. I don't know if he'll have an immediate impact this year, but that's a guy that came in super late to the class and just didn't get enough PR. I think he has the chance to be a good player. What's another name that I could see? Jordan Scott. He's already gone.
Yeah, I can't remember which of the Zier brothers impressed me in the scrimmage we got to see. I'd have to go back and read my notes, but on defense, it would be one of those two for me. I just don't think any of the others have and I'm not sure that those two kids. I said after the scrimmage, I said it's important to realize that the Zier evaluation that I made was him going against what effectively was the second team offensive line, because there were 4 projected starters missing in the scrimmage that we got to see. So I would definitely take Shamar on defense over one of the linemen for sure. Offensively, to be honest, I don't think he would. I mean, it's going to be Croma or it's going to be the quarterback, right? I mean,
Boggs is getting a lot of love from his teammates and a lot of publicity, but I ought to be completely honest with you, and hell, maybe the kid just thrives in terms of people counting him out, because I mean, we heard for a while, even before he was in Forest State's class, that he was too slow, or he couldn't do this or couldn't do that. But the production speaks for itself. Maybe Javon Boggs is able to contribute. It's a very defensive heavy class when you look at it, especially in terms of what they got and who they can contribute. I don't think we'll see Chase Lofton all that much this year. Although who knows? I mean, that tight end room is a little
thin.
It's a little thin. So you don't want to count your eggs before they hatch. And who knows? Maybe you're in a situation like last year. Of course, God forbid this happened for the health of anybody, but maybe you're in a situation where the health of the room is so depleted that somebody has to end up contributing. That maybe wouldn't get into
like last year.
Yeah.
Like
what about Kevin?
Williams?
So yes, yeah. So I don't consider Kevin Wynn underrated is the thing, Jack. Like your question was about an underrated freshman. I'm super high on Kevin, so I don't consider him underrated. I think he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. How early he plays, I don't know. I imagine he won't see too many snaps this season. But again, we'll see that the defensive. I normally you're never going to see linemen on either side of the football too early, but the D line room is apart from Darrell Jackson at the top and some of the transfers that they brought in, it's a younger room. So maybe somebody squeaks their way in.
Yeah. Listen, I hope that they're not playing any freshman linemen.
That would be bad.
Yeah, I hope.
Hey, you're in trouble.
So that would be the surprise to me if they played a freshman lineman on either side of the ball. But that would be my answer to that question. All right, Nick. Well, I think we've covered everything we can recover in recruiting and then some. We will may or may not be back on Friday. We'll see what happens. Obviously, the newcomer interviews will still be going on. Is that right on Friday? There's still one more set of interviews on Friday.
I'm actually not sure.
Yeah. So we may be back depending on what the breaking news is of the day. We will definitely come back and maybe we'll come back and talk a little bit, just do a Q&A type of thing on Friday. But we will let you know. You can obviously go to theosceola.com and check out all the newcomer interviews. Bob and Kurt are down at the Moore Center now covering that. They will have, I think there's about 5 kids going every day for the next 3 days. And so Bob and Kurt, I can't get the names right. Kurt will be. Sorry,
one more thing. Speaking of newcomer interviews, did you see Chasten Brown today said he was 265 pounds or even below that, 6'7" or 6'8" and 250 pounds. They need to put him on the seafood diet, seafood, and you eat it.
Yeah, he
because wow, that is thin.
He's 2 years away. He's 2 years away.
He might be longer than 2 years away.
2 years away. You'll be surprised how fast he'll put on that weight. You said he's 6'7", 258 right now?
Somebody tweeted about it. It might have been Kurt. You can read about it on the
I would
Osceola.com.
imagine by the time he goes from home for Christmas, he'll be 20 pounds heavier than he is right now at a minimum. I would guarantee it. They're going to feed that boy and feed that boy and feed that boy, and they're going to let weights drop on him and make him push him off and get him big and strong. But, yeah, that'd be fun to see what happens. But we'll be back possibly on Friday. We should have another wide receiver coming in on Friday as well, according to William. So we'll see what happens there. That could be.
He's talking about Chapman, I think.
Yeah. That could be Chapman. So we'll see what happens there. But we'll be back. But go to the Osceola.com for all the coverage of recruiting. I know you dropped your story on Ben Mabinga this afternoon. So if you want to read about Ben's official visit to Florida State last weekend, Nick's got that up. And again, Kurt and Bob have all of the newcomer interviews going on right now as well. So you'll have all that for you. Hope everyone has a great Wednesday. It's getting really dark in here, if y'all can already tell. And I will see everybody on the next version of the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines.